Okay, so unlocking AI's power for business growth. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Alvin Kabwama. I'm a data scientist, I'm a machine learning engineer, and I want to talk about those briefly to get to understand what they are and how they can actually help us grow our businesses. My background is electrical engineering, but I got really interested in the power of data and the ability to use this technology to influence or to create impact in different fields of life, including agriculture, because I've done work in health, I've done work in finance, I've done work in process improvement. So for me, the fact that I can use it in all aspects of life, all aspects that have data, and we all know now, well, COVID just kind of cemented it, but we now know that all parts of our lives are collecting data. We collect data about our customers, about our suppliers, about our inventory, about our human resource, everything. Every time we're creating data, we now wear these devices on our arms, and these devices are always collecting data about us. So that's a brief background about me. I currently work at NSSF as a data scientist and a machine learning engineer. I also head what they call a special tactics team, which is meant to experiment different business models for the organization to create new product offerings for people that are normally not yet saving with the fund. Yeah, so that's a brief background about me. So let's get into what is this technology, first of all. So artificial intelligence.
Hey, Alvin, can you share your video set where you can see the person instead of assuming we're talking to an AI?
You may assume that you're talking to an AI. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very possible. So yes, I hope you can all see me.
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay. All right, thank you. So unlocking artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is like teaching computers to think and learn like people. It helps them do smart things. So normally before human beings created a lot of data, we could look at, let me say, for example, like climate data. We can look at, okay, these 3 months it's raining, the next 2 months it's dry. We can quantify that using our brains. But there now comes a time when you've collected so much data, for example, about your customers, about your inventory, that you cannot crunch all that data using your brain. There are tools like Excel, yes, but still eventually you need a lot of your own input to be able to make sense of this data. And that's where artificial intelligence comes in to supersede us or to complement us in crunching the data, because with it, the more the data, the more it learns. And you know that all aspects of our lives, the more information we have, the better the decision making that we make. That's why they say what? Age is wisdom, because by the time you're older, you've amassed a lot more information and experience, and hence you are better at decision making. Data analytics, on the other side, is like magic, like a magic magnifying glass that helps us find hidden secrets and make better decisions using lots of numbers and facts. So the two are interlinked. Artificial intelligence is more like data analytics on steroids. So data analytics is when you break down your data, you look at it, you segment it, and you're like, okay, well, I have these customers that are doing this and that, or I have these pupils, or I see these staff members, they're not really engaged, I don't know why. Then you find out, you then take an intervention to find out why they're not engaged, but because you are seeing the data. So we're going to look at a few aspects, and these aspects of artificial intelligence and data analytics are from the different facets that we are in. Things that like ICT, telecommunications, things like healthcare, things like education, manufacturing, and the like. So the first aspect we're going to look at is fraud detection. So we've seen banks using this a lot, because, well, banks, you realize that are having very many customers, and nowadays the customers, given that with online banking and then being able to move money from your bank to your mobile money wallet, that means the number of transactions that a person carries out tend to grow compared to maybe 30 years ago, whereby you'd go make 1 transactions, deposit money at the bank when you've been paid, then come and withdraw some little money after 2 weeks. The transactions were few, but nowadays people use their bank cards for so many things. That means the data grows very fast. So as data is growing very fast, and also as these banks are digitizing these systems, also the prey are getting smarter. Hackers are getting smarter. People who are stealing people's credit card information on phishing websites. So what happens is, with fraud detection, for example, I'm paying for a course, or I've been spending money using my card, and I've been paying on Jumia, on Glovo, I've been paying my DSTV. Then all of a sudden, so it tracks a location where I've been doing what? Using my card, and how often I use my card. Then all of a sudden, it starts to see that my card is being used in like Austria. And it's now spending on very large amounts of money. Before, maybe I was spending like maybe 100K, which is more or less $30 or $27. Now I'm spending $300, $200, and even the patterns change. You as a person who's doing analytics for the bank, if you have, let me say, 12,000 customers, you can't sit down to look at all that data by yourself. It will take too long for you to notice those patterns and those changes. So that's why machine learning comes in. Machine learning, of course, it has been trained on what previous fraudulent transactions look like. So now when it, in the back end, every day it's running through all the customer data and figuring out which transactions on each customer data may look fraudulent. So when it picks up a transaction like that, it may block it or ask for further authentication to make sure that it is you who's doing those purchases. But you're seeing now the bank is using it to protect you, the customer, and protect itself, because when the person's card is stolen and it is used, customers usually go and start rioting to the banks that, you guys, my card was stolen, but someone has spent my money. And you see the bank's reputation is damaged and it loses customers. So we're using such technology. That's where the bank is able to protect itself and protect the customer. So that's why you're looking at things like location tracking and spending patterns. But fraud doesn't only happen in those areas. There's social media fraud. Of course, you know that on Twitter or on X right now, we use it a lot, but there are very many bots, there are very many fake accounts. And with that kind of sentiment.
Just allow me there too. You have mentioned two things that are a bit unfamiliar: machine learning, and then you have also mentioned bots. What are those?
Okay. So with data, there's data analytics where you look at the data, and there's data science, which is more of now making insights from that data. Now, when you go to machine learning is interchangeably used like with artificial intelligence. So whenever I use machine learning, it's more or less the same as artificial intelligence. The two are more or less the same. So now you're getting data, you've crunched it, and after getting actionable insights and actioning on those insights. So it has gotten the data from previous fraudulent cases, and then it has been able to track that particular fraudulent transaction in someone's spending. Then eventually what happens is it's able to block. So there's an action at the end of it all. Now, when I talk about bots are like automated softwares that can be put on different platforms. For example, on Twitter, you can look at an account and you think it's a real person's account, yet it's a bot because it has been automated. It's automated software that it's there following people, retweeting things. So I can make a bot for my company account, and it's there. It goes around, looks at the most engaging tweets, copies them, starts to tweet like that, so that people now start following it to grow their following. But these are usually bad for the owners of the social media companies. So using machine learning, because they know how the behavior of bots. You can't, for example, you can't start following, let me say 200 people in 1.5 minutes. It's not humanly possible, but bots can do that because it's automated software running in the cloud. So with such patterns, that's why you find that machine learning algorithm or an artificial intelligence algorithm can pick up social media fraud and then block all those accounts that are being run by bots. There are bots that are used in the right way, and those are allowed, but there are bots that are used in the wrong way, like what I just explained, and those are the ones that are usually blocked. Then there's an insurance fraud as well. So there are times when people want to claim more money than actually what they are insurance should give them, and they want to exaggerate it, both in things like motor vehicle, even in health. Some hospitals may want to do what? Exaggerate expenses. So using machine learning algorithms still, it can help insurance companies track fraudulent cases so that they protect themselves and don't have to pay out a big cover. Procurement fraud as well. So many times, some of us, maybe we get involved in PPDA procurement, and we know we bid for something, but then later, as a PPDA person or the company that sent out the bid, I'm starting to get inflated prices, because now the prices are becoming increasing, and I may not notice, but if I have a machine learning algorithm running through all the procurements that I'm running and looking at the prices and looking at year on year, looking at things like other factors like year on year inflation, because those are things that increase prices. The inflation, the change in the shilling and compared to the dollar, and it's using all these different factors. It can be able to now find out that, one, this person who is telling you that this car is now this price is lying, and this looks like they're doing some sort of procurement fraud, and then they can pick that up. So we've seen how machine learning or artificial intelligence can be used in detecting fraud. So the other area we're going to go to is education. And with education, we are seeing, just a moment, I need to minimize this, good thing. We're seeing how artificial intelligence or machine learning can be used. So one of the things that happens later on, and we always wish we had detected it, is when a child drops out, or when a child is going off track, but we don't notice it as teachers or as parents. So many schools have now started, one, digitizing the education system, but also looking at different factors about students to be able to predict which student may be able to fall off the course so that they can carry out an intervention early on. Just like people who are getting into drugs, they don't start by taking a whole lot of drugs at once. It starts slowly and the habit keeps growing. So if that can be detected early, just like any disease, just like any habit, we can then do what? Be able to have methods that mitigate that. So some of the things that can be used, so now we're looking at data points. When you're giving algorithms data, you're giving them data about a particular student. Let's say you're going to look at the student's performance. How is he attending class? Has he been attending all the classes? Has he been good at timekeeping in terms of coming? But all it's a day school. Have they been reaching on time? And these are all factors that when a student drops out and teachers realize, well, yes, that child used to come late because maybe there was a challenge at home. Maybe the parents were fighting. Yet if they had picked this on early, the student would have probably stayed in school. The teachers would have intervened, and then maybe to make sure it doesn't get to that level. Then looking at the class attendance, I've talked about, then access and use of learning material. So many schools nowadays use digital material online. So you're seeing, well, at the back end, we can track and see, okay, if there's learning material, there's a course in maybe social studies, and we're studying about hills or plateaus. How has this child gone through the entire course? Because back end, as a teacher or as an administrator, you can look and see which students have finished the course in terms of finishing all the course material and the courseworks, and which ones haven't. Then we're looking at behavioral patterns. How are they with their peers? Before, they were happier, they were engaging with their peers, but then you're looking at the fact that now they are more alone, they don't want to engage with their peers. Then also gender is a factor. Age is a factor too. Looking at missed assignments. How many assignments has this child missed? Before he was not missing assignments, but now he's missing assignments, missing deadlines. It becomes an indicator. So these are things, when you have 2,000 students, you can't look at every student individually, but each of those 2,000 students has data points on each of these things that I've talked about. And there are many more that could be collected, because with machine learning, the more the better. And it will always tell you which of the factors contribute most. For example, you'll realize that maybe class attendance and access to learning material contributes most to the dropout, in that the other factors are not so much and don't contribute too much. And that is depending on the school and the students. So eventually, when this information is collected about the students and this algorithm is running, the algorithm can then recommend that student XYZ in P6B may need an intervention because based on the data, last data of the last 6 months, it looks like they may drop out or may face a challenge or may be facing a challenge. They exhibit characteristics like several children that have dropped out of school and we didn't know. So then the teacher can take an intervention because we know schools are only getting more and bigger and bigger, and with digital and online learning, it's only getting much more in terms of scalability.
All right. You also mentioned something here, algorithm. What is an algorithm?
An algorithm is, how would I best explain it? Something that takes in an input and gives you an output. Let's just look at a basic algorithm, like one for calculating velocity or speed of a car. Speed of a car is distance covered, if it has covered 5 kilometers, out of how much time has it taken to cover those 5 kilometers? It has taken 5 kilometers have been covered in 20 minutes. So what is the speed of that car? So the inputs for this algorithm, and that is at a simple level. The inputs are the distance, the time, the output is the speed. So now when you are inputting, and as you're seeing these factors, when you're inputting these, you're inputting them as how I would input the speed, the distance and the time. Then the output would be the speed. So here the output would be the likeliness of the child to drop out. So just that now at this point, this algorithm is much more sophisticated than what the human brain can actually compute by itself. But the human brain may be able to compute by itself on one child. But now when you have 2,000, it becomes much more complicated. And that's where these machines come in, that for them, even if there are 20,000 children, for them, the fact that they are running on computers and running day and night, all they need is electricity and internet connection, they're only just going to crunch the numbers. And also when you're looking at students' performance and you've been looking at it from, let me say, P1 to P7, just one student alone, that data may even be too much for you to crunch as a single person. So I've talked about algorithm in its simplest state, the one that we can even compute in our brain. But now machines come in to do those that we can't compute within our brains. I hope it's clear.
Yeah. Now please continue.
Great. So another area where we apply machine learning is in manufacturing. Manufacturing is a very crucial aspect of our economy. And if we don't monitor the machines we use, if we are not doing predictive maintenance, these machines will do what? Will break down. So I'll give you an experience where I did some deployment in Century Bottling Company. I was contracted by their line manager to come on, look at the machine that washes the soda bottles. So what happens in Century Bottling is that the machine that washes the soda bottles is the most crucial because it puts the bottles there, spreads sodium hydroxide, it cleans them, turns them around. So in other words, if that machine breaks down, the whole plant breaks down. So there's an axle in that machine that always broke down, and it was not predictable. All we knew that the vibrations on the machine would increase whenever it was about to break down. That replacing that axle costs Century Bottling 20 million shillings, but the 20 million shillings is not the problem. The downtime is the problem, in that they know they're supposed to produce 15,000 bottles of soda in that hour, and then 3 hours have passed and they are just replacing this machine. And it was very unpredictable. So what we did was, first of all, back then I was still exercising my electrical engineering, first built some sensors to monitor the vibrations on that machine. It was logging all this data on the cloud. So that was just monitoring the machine. Then looking at the data, now we built an algorithm that was able to predict when this machine would be able to fail or when it was going to fail, so that we can then schedule predictive maintenance, so that we don't have downtime when orders are coming in and then we have to kind of do a lot of firefighting. So we're able to install this at in Namamve and also in their plant in Barara. So that's just a practical application. So some of us may be doing it, maybe light manufacturing. Let's just say something as simple as a maize mill. We know we use an induction motor on that. And those motors usually break down and you have to rewind them. And then you imagine you have 2 tons of maize there. People have brought it season time. People want to hit their maize. And then your machine is down. You're going to lose money because they're going to take their maize elsewhere. So that's an example in manufacturing. Furthermore, in manufacturing, process optimization for energy efficiency. So sometimes before, when we're executing work in factories, we know that everything follows a process. This starts, then the next, then the next, then the outcome. So I happen to also work in Uganda clays, where we're looking at the process that they follow when the clay comes in, how it is cleaned, how the stones are removed, then how the amount of water that's put there, how it's molded, how it's turned into cut into, for example, we're doing tiles, how they make the flat part of the tile, then the tile press. So the tile press is something like this. And you're seeing when it has pressed, it puts a pattern like this, but those is a ceramic tile. But for Uganda clays, they're clay tiles. Now, what was happening was they have 2 tile presses. One is automatic. One is it automatically does the pressing to create the patterns on the tiles as you see them. Like, for example, those of us who have seen the Uganda clays roofing tiles, the pattern and the way it's shaped. And so it automatically presses the clay, puts that pattern and those ridges, and then even removes that tile, puts it somewhere else. Then the other, when it is done pressing, someone has to remove. So even with basic machine learning, we could look at the process flow, and we figured there was a problem with it, because they would give those 2 machines the same target. They say today those machines have to make each machine has to do 2,000 tile presses. But that didn't make sense because one machine is automatic. So we're able to use artificial intelligence to optimize the process flow, in that let the machine that's automatic have a higher output. In other words, you can give it 2,800. We give it anywhere between 2,500 to 2,800. And then the one where it's manual in removing the tiles, you give it a target of about 1,300, so that at the end of the day, these machines finish faster. Because what was happening before, when the 2 machines were having the same target, the one that was automatic would finish faster, then the one that's manual would continue. But guess what happens? Now energy costs come in, because factories like that use 3-phase power. They spend a lot of money on what they call power factor correction, because those machines give up a lot of reactive power. For those of us who have done manufacturing, I think we understand those different types of power. So you're seeing that here we're using it for optimizing a process for energy efficiency. So the outcome is always very, very key when you are using these technologies, because you have to look at what outcome do you want, then you work backwards. So CRM data for better customer experience. What is CRM? Some of us might have heard about CRM, Customer Relationship Management Module. Some of us in our businesses, we do have this. The big enterprises have this. For example, the banks, the mobile money companies, they have CRM systems. They collect all the information about you. The last time you made an order, what kind of data bundles you buy, everything. Even the banks collect all this information about you. When you call and complain, what did you complain about? What did you, how have your spending habits been in terms of airtime and data? So that they have a whole holistic picture about you. What is the end goal? To retain you as a customer. So let's just say I have been having complaining, MTN guys, your network is bad. So then I stopped using I stopped using MTN for a while, and they notice. But how are they going to notice when they have like 2 million customers? How are they going to notice that Alvin has stopped? So with the CRM data, because they noted that complaint, with machine learning, the machine learning can pick out those insights that, well, this customer complained, they gave a sentiment like this. A sentiment is when I give a comment or feedback, a sentiment is that a negative or positive. So I say, oh, you guys have great service, that's a positive sentiment. And I say, oh, your service is terrible, I called that time, you put me on hold, that's a negative sentiment. So the sentiment for every feedback that I give them when I call customer care or when I answer feedback form is recorded under my ID in their CRM. And then the ML algorithm is able to classify that this was a negative sentiment and it was a positive sentiment. So when they notice that, when the algorithm notices that, well, Alvin hasn't been buying for a while, it will give recommendations. Let's give Alvin 10 free minutes. Then they send you that message. You have received 10 free minutes from MTN. Well, you'll feel happy. You're like, well, okay, let me call up someone. So I'll call up someone. But what's going to happen? The 10 minutes are going to get done. And eventually, probably, I'll buy another 30 minutes. What have they done? Retained the customer and made the customer do what? Purchase again. So through using artificial intelligence, we're seeing that we are increasing our customer retention, given that we have so much information about our customers now. It's so hard to crunch using normal methods. Customer segmentation. For example, we know that banks classifiers, the mobile money points classifiers, but even you people classify your clients. You know, you have your big clients whereby for them, they can even come and check things on credit because they know, they're paying a lump sum. Then you know that you have your customers, these ones, for them, when they take things, for them paying is already a pain. So you never give them things without them handing you cash. That's already a segmentation that you've done in your head. But that's because you know a few of you have few customers, maybe you have like 20 customers, and they're the ones that who take your produce. But now when you are at scale and you have, as I say, 2 million customers, you can't just easily segment that way. And you can segment with different ways. Look at, okay, these are people who are maybe corporate clients. These ones, they buy these data bundles. So even the way they're handled is differently. So in there, when the CRM data is there, you can just ask the algorithm, look for segments or clusters of people among this data. And it will go there and figure out segments. So at this point, you haven't told it the outcome, just said it, go and look for segments. And then it throws you back these segments and you'll see if this makes sense to you or it doesn't. And in many times you realize that it will give you data that you didn't know, that it will give you data and segments that you probably didn't know were there before. And you're like, wait, I actually have these people who live around the same area. So should I open up a branch there? So I'll give you an example. I have a friend called Alex. Alex runs Daniel Dry Cleaners. So one of the things we started doing with him is collecting information about when he started the dry cleaning, about his customers. Where are they staying? Because he would come bring their dry cleaning to the Grand Imperial branch and also the branch that's downtown. But when he started collecting the data about the people, guess what now the algorithm does for you? It starts to show you the clusters of the areas where majority of your customers are. So that gives you a recommendation on where you can open up your next branch to ease your customers' journey of coming to you. So you're actually increasing your customer retention by just collecting data. So that's why they say that collect as much data as possible about your customers. So looking at things like optimal communication time, we all know there's an optimum communication time. For example, when they want to sell you an ad, they have figured out using these algorithms when you will most likely read that ad. If I send you a message, for example, people work in office jobs, or very soon office, but you're doing your sales Monday morning, 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., you most likely not look at it. Why? You're focusing on your customers. You're looking at planning for the week. So you're looking there. So, and given that some of these messages have what they call read receipts, they get to know when someone has read the message. So they see, well, we sent these messages at around 12 p.m., but few people read. Okay, they note the data down. We send these messages around 1 p.m., maybe about 54% read. We send these messages around 8 p.m. when people may be at home, and 86% read. So now the algorithm figures out, okay, it's the optimum communication time to send out messages for ads, messages for emails, for advertisement, things like that, all through customer relationship management data. Now, financial process automation. What is financial process automation? So for those of us who are working in companies whereby we follow a clear But even if it's not clear, but there's a procedure that we all follow where we're automating financial processes. And maybe usually money, an invoice comes of someone supplied, let me say HR, someone in welfare, they supplied, let me say what. So let's just say we have water dispensers in our office. And these guys who bring those cans of water supplied, then they later send their invoice. So the invoice goes side of HR because HR is human resource is the one that is in charge of that sort of welfare, making sure people have the water in their offices. And then eventually the HR says, okay, yes, this was delivered, sends it to the head of finance. Head of finance he approves that yes, we received this water, heads it to the head of finance. Head of finance approves the payment against the invoice, then sends it to accounts payable. And that's a repetitive process. Someone has to do it. Someone sets at accounts receivable because that's where all the invoices come, and then sends these received invoices to the different sectors. So, for example, you're buying new equipment, like you've onboarded 2 new staff, you're going to get them laptops, or you're buying a new printer. So you go to, let me say, a company like CBIL has delivered the printer, and then if they send the invoice. Now, yes, that's an IT function. So it's that invoice accounts receivable sends it to the head of IT. Head of IT sends it to, after approving that yes, we received the printer. After that, sends it to head of finance. Head of finance eventually clears because the head of IT has cleared, then sends it to the accounts payable. So it's a continuous repetitive task. Using artificial intelligence, we can actually automate this task. So, and what are the advantages of automating such a task? When you automate such a task, one, you'll free up more people to do more meaningful work because you won't have someone repeatedly doing that. Because, you know, for those of you whereby you sit in finance, you know how those invoices come in, organizing them. You send emails, or some people now move with the papers. Those approval papers from one desk to another. Then to say then the guy is in a meeting. Okay, you have to wait for him to come out of the meeting. It slows down the process of the company's progress. But when you automate it, of course, you control risk in that when an invoice comes, someone won't be able to manipulate it. When you automate, you have more manageable role and time and effort. You enhance the efficiency of the business. You enhance okay, we've talked about business enhancing the efficiency of the business, automating the repetitive tasks, then optimizing the processes, and of course, reducing cost. And you get the clarity over customer behaviors through analytics, because eventually, at the end of the day, this gives you back analytics. So we are going to look at a practical example of something like this. And that's why I needed his email address, and he's going to confirm something. So let's go now to look at a practical example. And I've just explained it before. Usually, the invoice is received by what? Accounts receivable. Then accounts receivable sends the invoice to the head of department, or the department that initiated the service or the purchase. Or maybe they said, you guys, it was a good day, Java's. As you guys said, oh, let me buy you guys Java's breakfast. Java's delivers, they send an invoice. Then for whatever department, maybe it was sales and they hit their target, so you rewarded them. So the sales person agrees, yes, we ordered from Java's 10 packs of breakfast, that is 32,000 each, that's 320,000. Okay, he approves. Then he sends to the head of finance. Head of finance approves. Then this head of finance sends to the accounts payable team. Usually in some organizations, when the expenditures are big, head of finance would even send to the head of department, because there are limits to how much money the head of finance can approve in some organizations. So we're going to look at this practically and see how it works. Now I'm going to exit this. I hope you can still see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. Let me first remove this because I didn't need it here. Let me just move this here. I need to use
that was a good message you deleted. People like those ones.
People like those ones, Anyway, so now I'm going to use my work mail as the accounts payable mail. This is my work mail. I'm going to use it as the accounts payable mail. It's one going to be receiving emails about what? Emails about it's going to emails about invoices of different departments from different service providers and vendors. Then I'm going to use one of my other emails as the head of department's email address. And then finally, you're going to verify when you're going to be the guy of accounts payable, and you want to verify when this has actually come. So this was one of my former emails that I used when I was still very young, but I still use it for advertising. So I'm going to say send to this. So this is the guy of accounts payable. Let me say invoice for team building activities, dream house events. So I go on the desktop. Let's see desktop. Let's minimize this. So I'm going to pick up this invoice. Let's look at it. We're seeing it's being invoiced to Trailblazer Dream House Events. Is sending it to Trailblazer Safaris. It's a total of 5 million shillings. The account numbers are there. Okay, so Trailblazer Safaris is going to receive this. Let's imagine that's our company name. So I go on my desktop. Desktop is here. I then look for that invoice, Dream House Events. So I say open. And then I say, here is the invoice for the activities planned. Regards. Then I send. When I send, that means it has now gone to the accounts payable, which is, for example, my work mail, my personal NSF email. So it has gone there, and I'm the person at accounts payable. So when I'm at accounts payable, when that email comes, it's automatically going to be, let me just check these attachments here. Okay. Okay, let me just refresh this. It's automatically downloaded, put in a folder called attachments. When it's received, it's going to be put in a folder called attachments. After being put in that folder called attachments, this was a few minutes ago when I was still testing. So let's see the one that is going to come when the email arrives. After it has been put in that attachments folder, artificial intelligence is going to be applied onto this invoice, extract the vendor name, the amount, then initiate a process. The process is going to be sent to the head of the department that asked for this you're seeing a few seconds ago. It has replaced the one that was there. So it has been downloaded. There's a process running behind automatically. Now it is extracting the information from this invoice. And then after it has extracted the information from the invoice, what's going to happen is it's going to initiate and send to the head of department. The head of department will then approve. And then after being approved, it goes to head of finance. After head of finance has approved as well, it will now come to accounts payable. And then you're going to confirm with me when you receive it. So I'm now going to, this is the email I'm using. You're seeing 948 has just come for approval. So it has said, approval, dear head of operations, the payment for the invoice requires your approval. Okay, I need to pull out the amount, but it attached the invoice. So I'll just look at it to know that, okay, this is the thing we agreed with the Dream House. And then I say approve. So then it's going to go to the head of finance. That was the head of the department. The department that's going to do that team building. Now, I think you heard that. Just a moment. So another one. So head of finance, it comes. Say, dear head of finance, the payment of this invoice requires your approval. It has already been approved by the head of department. Attached is the invoice. He sees it, approves. When I select approve, you're going to confirm with me when you receive that email. So you're seeing we've automated the entire process, which normally people move around with paper.
I've received it.
You've received it, and what is it saying?
Dear accounts payable, go ahead and pay against this invoice. Approval has been done by the HOD and the head of finance with the invoice attached.
So we have seen how artificial intelligence is being used with process automation to automate an entire finance workflow. And I chose a finance workflow because we all understand, because all our companies at least deal with money. We have some sort of process workflow that we follow. So you're seeing that now. Imagine 200 invoices are coming in. The guy at accounts receivable is going to suffer moving around with these things. But if this thing is automatically downloading these things, pulling out the data, pulling out the data, sending these invoices, logging this information, even the trail is there for audit purposes. So that was the process automation demonstration, and just to show you a practical application of what we have been discussing. And that was the last part of it. Thank you very much. I will take any questions.
Thank you, Kabwama, very much. That was interesting. That last bit, what was the AI running? Is it a particular uninstall on your computer? How does it work?
Again?
The last demonstration you put of the account of the finance process automation.
Yes.
Was there a particular AI that somebody has to install?
No, so that one, there's AI that is looking at, that is able to extract data from invoices and receipts. So it's what I'm using. It's not running on their computer. It's running on in the cloud. It's running in the cloud. So that so that even when those invoices come when I'm not on my computer, it happens in the cloud. All those automations are running in the cloud, sending to whichever approval. So imagine the head of operations is on a trip, is on the road. Are we going to wait till he's back for him to approve a payment? No, he can just get it on his phone. On his phone, sees it. You're like, yeah, this is a thing. He approves. It goes to the head of finance. And if he's out of the country, he's somewhere, he'll also receive it. He can even approve through his phone as well. Accounts payable is able to do what? Pay. But you're seeing in there also, I want us to be cognizant of the fact that as much as it's automating the process, it is changing someone's job as the job was. I don't want to say it is making someone lose their job, because as we know, AI is going to create more jobs than it's going to destroy. Yes, it's going to destroy some jobs as we know them now. So what a doctor would normally be doing will be different in the future because of assistance of AI. AI will look at the scan to give it recommendations. Then the doctor does what? Goes ahead to either agree with it or not. So now the way the doctor is changes. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to also highlight is, yes, my particular expertise is in consulting, doing all this kind of work. So what happens is, I sit with a customer, sit down and say, okay, what is your end goal? Because these are unique. These are all very unique to different businesses. And that's why it's even the examples I gave in manufacturing, in finance, in education, all of them are very unique to different businesses. Some are very generic, like for example, finance, but others, some businesses, especially the SMEs, they have very unique problems. And then we see if the AI can work on those problems. Sometimes just analytics that is required, not even AI. Yeah. So any questions are welcome.
Thank you, Alvin. There are a few questions in chat. Please do type out your questions in chat, or you can put up your hand. Then we shall be able to forward them to Alvin. There is one here from Kampuria Martin. This one seems to be about computers. What are different types of computers? Which types of computers are suitable for an SME at startup phase?
Which types of computers are suitable for an SME at startup phase? So it really depends on what the startup is doing. If you're just using the computer for tracking documents, browsing the internet, the idea is the basic for office skills, spreadsheets, of course, because use that a lot in finance, PowerPoint presentations and pitching to investors and other people. A basic computer, Core i5, 7th or 6th generation would be suitable. But if you're now doing high-end things, like for example, your startup is dealing in graphics, you may need a higher-end computer, like an i7 with a dedicated, what they call dedicated GPU, or more or less you probably use a MacBook, because those ones have dedicated GPUs. Dedicated GPUs are graphic processing units, those that help in handling heavy processing. So for example, guys who do animation, people who do video editing, that's heavy processing. So those are the kind of computers you would need.
Would that also work for somebody in manufacturing who wants to automate their process?
Yes.
All right. Susan says, thank you, Alvin, Enterprise Uganda, for the enlightening session, insightful session today. Jude asks, please recommend some AI data analytics tool for restaurants and retail business.
For restaurants and retail business. But so it says, and that's why I said at the beginning, it has to be a really case by case. Because so when you say restaurant and retail business, that's a very broad. What part of restaurant are you focusing on? Are you focusing on managing the orders? Are you focusing on looking at tracking customers? Are you looking at the finance bit of it? You see, it's very general. So it becomes quite hard for me to recommend something from a general level.
Okay, Jude, maybe you can fine-tune your question and make it more specific and put it in chat. Harriet says, great demo. Says, thank you for the presentation. Martin asks, what is a cloud? Okay.
The cloud is, so if we've heard about companies like Amazon Web Services, companies like Google, companies like Microsoft. So these companies have dedicated data centers, vast places whereby they store computers with a lot of storage, managed storage. So that is what we call the cloud, because you can access it anywhere as long as you have internet connection. The best example I can tell you is you see your emails, or when you put things on Google Drive, you're putting them on the cloud. Or when you put things on OneDrive, you're putting them on the cloud, because you're storing those images in the cloud somewhere. They're not on your phone, on your computer. So you can just share a link of the folder where those photos are with someone. Then they also access them. So they are accessed. They're on a Google data center somewhere. If it's Google Drive, seated there. This center is connected to the internet, and anyone who you give access can be able to access them. So even these algorithms that I've shown you, some of them run on the cloud. It's a case by case. Some you can run on the cloud. Some are better not to run on the cloud. Some are better to run what they call on the edge. For example, in manufacturing, it is always advised never to run on the cloud. It's always better to run on the edge. On the edge is when your algorithm is running on a premise computer, a computer or a server that you have on premise, because you don't want an internet connectivity challenge that you might have. Like, for example, like what happens then, your Zoom call kind of goes off for a bit, or your internet connectivity breaks, and yet your manufacturing process is depending on this algorithm that's in the cloud. Your process will just stop. So those ones, we use what they call on edge.
Martin, maybe to add some bit of information is normally you store information on your computer, on your device, and if you have no internet, you can still access the information. But if you are storing information on the internet, and you can access it from any device, like you mentioned, for example, your email, you can go to any machine. So it is off-site, it is not on your machine, it is not on your premises. You can access it from anywhere in the world. So anything you can access from anywhere in the world is, you sort of mention it to be sort of on the cloud. Seems to be floating sometimes. Emmanuel asks, how do I access you for mentoring as I become an AI ML engineer?
I can maybe you could share my contact with the members on the chat.
Okay, yeah, you can just put your email address in chat and people can maybe get you from there. Samuel says, thank you for your presentation. Now, Nantongo Josephine and Lila Manzi have a similar question. Is how do you detect IT staff that can use this very system to steal money? And then the other part is, when will I start detecting untrustworthy staff, especially those who trade in cash as stock?
Come again? I didn't hear the first part of the question. How do you
detect IT staff that can use this very system to steal money? So can the AI be, yeah.
How do you detect AI staff that use this very system?
IT staff.
IT staff. Yeah, but you see, it be very, very. So you see now that already, just by thinking about it, there's already a flaw in your process. You do not want IT staff to be engaged in finance. because that's when you're giving them an opportunity to also steal money, and then don't manipulate the system for them not to be caught. So you make sure there's even when it comes to accessing your systems, their rights, for example, of a salesperson should not be the same rights to access financial data as a person who is working in accounts payable. So those already some of the distinctions in how you set up your structure of your company to reduce that sort of risk. But I mean, there are consultants who advise on setting up these kind of company structures to mitigate these risks, because many people make those mistakes while setting up their company structure, and it leaves a loophole for such things to happen.
I think her question is alluding to times when IT staff who have control to the system, who have admin user rights and control over a system, or help install or to configure, also leave space for them to steal.
Also leave space for them to steal.
Yeah.
Well, I think there it's really about how you configure. So I'll say for me as a consultant, I'll come, do it, set it up, configure, then give them rights. But I won't hand it to them for them. I won't hand it to them for them to configure. That is a very bad way of doing it as a consultant, because then at the end of the day, it's going to come back to you as a consultant and say your thing doesn't work. So what I do is come, configure based on your process flow, based on your problem, and then after it has been configured and is working properly on your premises, we have a 6 months time whereby maybe we are giving support. After that, we hand over to your IT team. But then again, at the end of the day, still, there are some things that I don't want us to look at AI as some magic box that is going to solve all our problems, because I guess because of how it has been talked about, people get that sort of perception. Because even when you as long as you put it in the wrong, it's at the end of the day, it's just a tool. Put it in the wrong hands, it can still do bad.
Okay. Maybe to add on that, also this one may help with Manzi's question, is that what a lot of people are doing these days is that they have the AIs having the systems, but then every once in a while they also do physical checks of different items to see if there's if what is in the system is actually what is on the ground. So if you find there's a difference there, then you can know there's something wrong.
Yes, exactly, and some people do that exactly, because as we look at AI now, it's still in its growth stage. We're not yet at the point where we are fully going to hand over to each to manage everything, all particular aspects. Still, yes, it's complementing what we do. It's learning faster. It's having more practical applications, but we're not yet at the stage whereby we're fully handing over to it. Because also fully, even when we reach that stage, it will be dangerous to fully hand over to it, because then that means it can also start to do things of its own that it wants. That's why you heard of talks about AI and ethics. If a self-driving car knocks a person, who is to blame? Is it the person? Who are you going to sue? Is it the company car? I mean, the company that made the car? Is it the owner of that car who told you to start self-driving? So there are so many gaps around regulation as well, because still people also trying to still understand this aspect of artificial intelligence.
Okay. So Lumala has clarified on his question, but I can see that is similar to Joseph Sharon George's, which I'll come to. So Dennis Samuyiga says, good morning, I'm running a manufacturing company, an engineering consultancy. Surely I need Alvin more in automating all the systems. Alvin has shared his contacts, his email and phone number. Dennis, you can get to him. Then Martin is asking, what's the difference between a cloud and a server?
Okay, what do you mean, a cloud and a server? So the server, they're both servers because they have space on them and they have operating systems that are running on them. But the difference is the cloud, these are servers owned by an enterprise organization like AWS, Google, Microsoft. Those are big providers that we know of cloud storage. But ideally, what is there, if you look at those data centers, they're just multiple servers with multiple storage. When you say a server, when people usually say a server, they usually mean their on-premise server. For example, in your IT room, you have an on-premise server, one that probably runs your website, runs a few in-house services that you use. There are some in-house services that you use, or before you even migrate to the cloud, because remember when you migrate to your services to the cloud, they start billing you. So some people, many companies have in-house servers, not too much space, but they have them there to, first of all, experiment. There's when you build an in-house solution, you want to have it hosted somewhere to experiment with it. People see how people are adopting it, how are they engaging with it, so that you do what they call agile building. So with that agile and sort of methodology, when the final product is out, that's when you can migrate to the cloud, when then they start billing you. Some organizations, like for example, banks, do not use the cloud. It is because you're putting people's financial information on the cloud.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's so the question for, can POS systems for retail shops be modified to have AI features?
Come again, can POS systems for retail shops do what?
Can POS systems for retail shops be modified to have AI features?
AI features. I guess they can. Well, now that AI is advanced, it will depend on what features a person wants, and that's why I said you always come with let's start with the end goal. What do you want to achieve? Because you see, sometimes people come with I want to use AI on this, but sometimes maybe to achieve your end goal you don't need AI. But let's figure out what is your outcome, or where is your problem point. Then we work backwards to figure out what solution we are going to use. But the quick answer to that question, yes, they can. For example, very many in the future, we're going to see people using facial recognition as their sort of PIN. So like how we use to verify payments and things like that. I've seen some companies here have already started using something of the sort. And so now imagine a point of sale system just scans your face or uses your fingerprint, and that's how it's doing what? Verifying that it's you who's making the payment, not having a PIN, remembering passwords and things like that.
Okay. From Florence, Jessica Baine. Alvin, thank you for this presentation. I happen to run a Circles accounts. Can I have a process that automatically reflects members' deposits on the system once they deposit their funds in the bank? I'm assuming this is instead of manually typing them in.
So can I have a process that reflects member deposits on the system once they deposit their money in the bank? And when they deposit their money in the bank, so they deposit their money on the bank account, on the Circle bank account, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So she wants a system that automatically shows them. So why would I thought on the bank statement that would show? You just download the bank statement, because back at the back end you can download the bank statement and then you just extract that information.
Yeah, probably. So I
want to understand the part of manual typing. Where does the manual typing come in?
Florence, can you unmute and present your question? Florence? Okay, let's wait for Florence. Emmanuel, I see Emmanuel's hand is up. Emmanuel, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much, Abed, and also Alvin, really, for the precise presentation. I was seeing I was not being picked on, so I typed the question. Yeah, but nevertheless, now to Alvin, you have really painted a very green picture, okay, a very brilliant, bright picture for AI. And you mentioned at the very beginning of your presentation that AI will also increase jobs, but also decrease. But the way I'm seeing from your presentation, it's as if there are going to be less jobs for the less tech-savvy people. Yeah. So can you just tell us briefly how AI will increase jobs for those people who are not so tech-savvy? Thank you so much.
Okay. So now, I want us to go back a bit in history, and you see, we don't know what we don't know. So we right now are using the thinking that we have up till now as of this moment. Let me give you an example of the mailing system. The mailing system was very predominant. And when the internet came, people said the same thing about the internet. Because the internet brought email and it crushed the entire mailing system. The mailing system was employing a very huge part of the US economy. Even here in Uganda, poster would send, the poster buses would always move with letters all over the country. But even when the people who are working directly on those jobs lost those jobs, there were other jobs that were created. And I'm using that example because at least we've seen it. When I talk about AI creating jobs, majority of the time, you don't even know because we're not yet there. We've seen very many jobs come up with advances in technology, not even AI, that we never imagined would be there. But then again, as you said, just a moment, as you said, for the less tech savvy, my advice would be that try to acquaint yourself with technology as much as possible. It's just where we are going. It's like saying, I want to stay in the cash economy. I don't want to be in the digital cash economy. I may not savvy about digital cash. No, it's just where we are going, unfortunately. And you need to know how to operate the digital cash economy, because very soon you realize you have cash and no one wants to handle cash, because everyone is doing payments through mobile money, through bank, through what, because that is now the sort of normal way. And then it can even be passed as a what? As a policy. Remember, scratch cards were abolished, just like that. So for me, I think my advice would be, one, being tech savvy. You don't have to be the people building, but at least be aware of the uses. Because now I'll tell you, AI is, you've seen what they call generative AI. I didn't want to talk about it here, but let me just bring it up here. You've seen generative AI. You've seen the likes of things like ChatGPT. Writers are concerned. You've seen things like, before people would create movies, now with something like what they call Midjourney, you can create a movie scene. You can create a movie script in ChatGPT and then create a movie scene off that script. So now a person who's buying hardware, cameras, it becomes complicated for you. But the point is, now, as those jobs even move away, others are being created. But also, someone may counter argue and say, but Alvin, you see, people now want the originality, but the problem is the younger generation who doesn't even tell the difference between the originality of this was built by AI, and those are going to be the consumers and the customers. So for me, the future still for me looks bright, because we're going to be at a better place, because with every advancement of technology, one, human lifespan has been increased. Before, human lifespan was about 46. Then with human medicine coming into play, it increased to about 60. Now with artificial intelligence and genome sequencing, it has been pushed to 80, 90. With AI helping in all of this, we would be able to spin up medicines very fast. One example is how the COVID vaccines were spun up. So I've just tried to paint a picture of the good, but also the bad. So the bad is, well, if we want the jobs remain as they are now, I don't think that's going to happen. They will eventually change.
Okay. I think let's have one last question from Florence. Florence, please go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you so much, Enterprise Uganda. Now, my question was, what actually happens here? We have a system that we use to actually generate reports and everything, just for the members' deposits, savings, and shares. So usually when they deposit money through the bank, they send me receipts and I update the system. But what I wanted to ask is, can I have a system or a process that automatically reflects money once someone makes a deposit to the bank? Can it reflect directly to our system? That was the question. Then also directly sending like sort of reports or a statement to members, instead of me extracting the statement from the system to Excel. Can I have a process or a system that directly sends members their statements or reports on a monthly basis?
Okay. So what normally would happen is, you would have to have access to the bank, what they call a bank, the back end of the bank, for them to give, because the bank just tells you directly. Since as soon as members deposited, it sends you a direct linkage to your what's it called, to your platform. So that is a conversation that I think we can explore further. It is very possible, even with the receipts, but you can't have that direct access with the bank, then it may be complicated for you to have it reflect automatically. You still have to use the receipts, but you can still automate around the process of the receipts to make sure you don't have to suffer in inputting that information yourself. Also in the generation of the Excels.
Yeah, maybe what if I can just get a statement from the bank and the system, can it automatically pick the information?
Now, exactly. We can also explore that, whereby I just get, at the end of the day, every end of day, I get the statement from the bank. And you can, banks can do that for nowadays. You can choose how often you want your statement. It sends you that statement for that day, and then automatically it extracts that information, the people's names, and then that is input into the system.
All right. Then the second question she had was automatically sending member statements instead of her doing it.
Automatically, yeah. So, but that means there's a particular system you're using, you extract this, put them into Excel, and then send to the members. To answer that, I would have to have a look at your system, because there's automating around the cloud, but then there's also some system compatibilities. So I would have to have a look at how your system works for me to be able to give you that assessment.
All right. Thank you. Well, I'm seeing the number of people want to get in touch with Alvin. Alvin has shared his contacts in chat, his email, his phone number. You can give him a call or send him an email and say you can set it up. Just a word of caution is that not everything needs to be automated, or not everything needs to be automated. So you need to identify what you have to automate. And also, the more information you give, the easier it is to actually find a solution for your problem. A number of people, when they call in the IT consultants, AI consultants, they don't give them the full information about the system. And then they blame them when the solution presented is not working. And this is actually not the consultant's fault. It is you who has withheld information, because you're like, if I tell this person this thing, they will steal me. They will do this. They will do this. They will do this. You need to give as much background information as you can, process information, transaction information, so the consultant can understand and come up with a solution for you. So thank you very much, Alvin. Maybe you can give us your last words.
All right. So first of all, and thank you for the opportunity to come and share this with you. As Abid said, the power of these systems is only with the information that you give. Just like when you ask a customer what they want, when they're not sure what they don't, when they don't tell you what they want, let's imagine a scenario in a shop. Customer comes, and this has happened to you guys when you go in a shop. Then they say, the shop has clothes, shoes, perfumes, what? Then the person is like, then immediately the vendor says, "Can I start kolera?" Then for you just moving around, you're seeing the fact that you've not gotten information from the customer. So for us is to get as much information from you about what you want, so that we can be able to execute and give you the best value for money, or the best value in the product. But also, as a word of caution, let's not assume that AI is going to come and solve all our problems like a magic bullet. It isn't, at least not yet. We still need to be cautious on how we use it. It still has biases. Why are these biases there? Because the data we give it, we as humans are inherently biased. We have our own human biases. If I came to do a presentation and maybe we're at a seminar in a hall, and then I come in shorts, even if I gave it like this, as I would have given it, you already, because you had that bias, like, is this guy serious? Is he going to talk to us like this? I come and come there because of the bias. But my ability to deliver the information has nothing to do with how I'm dressed. So the point that because we have these biases, and I'll give you an example. It was one of Google's AIs back in 2014 when they launched that AI that could classify 1,000 different objects and people as well. So among the data that they'd given it to train on, there were few images of Black people. Then when people were using it, eventually it classified some Black people as gorillas. Where was the problem? They gave it biased data. If they gave it 1,000 images of people, maybe 800 of those were white and 200 of those were what? Were Black. So you'd notice that even when it's learning, it's going to learn those biases. So these algorithms eventually inherit those biases that we have, because as computers work, garbage in, garbage out. So that's exactly the underlying point with these algorithms. So even when we are trying to use them, let's be cognizant of that, so that as we put in information, we are making sure it is what? Not biased. That's how we can get the best value for it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Alvin. Emmanuel, I think we'll get in touch. He has a context-specific question. Yeah, as I mentioned, these are business recovery series from Enterprise Uganda. Every Thursday, you can just log in all the time and also go to our YouTube channels to access the previous ones. We also have a WhatsApp group called Enterprise of Uganda, where we always update with different information that is happening. I've put the link to the WhatsApp group on chat, so you can join at your convenience. Thank you very much. Seeing people have still raised hands, but we have run out of time. Please reach out to Alvin directly, and he'll be able to actually interact with you. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a nice weekend.